Guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast, where we bring in experts from the community to help teach you on actionable ways to improve the performance of your franchise system and business. And I've got a friend of mine with me, Paul Ebert. He's the president of Two Maids. If you don't know, he successfully helped them through the acquisition process. They're an HFC brand, a home franchise concept brand, and these guys are they're kind of like the not the new kid on the block. You guys are the youngest franchise system or home cleaning franchise system to be on the Franchise 500 for Entrepreneur Magazine. So just it's funny how really 10-year-old franchise already have 140 units, that great AUV, good economics. It's one of the highest tech home cleaning companies that service franchises that's out there. So really a fascinating brand. They do a lot more than clean houses. Yeah, I can just tell you that. It's a really good concept. Paul, I'm going to brag on you just a little bit longer, but then I want you to tell us a bit more about Two Maids if you don't mind. But
Sure.
just so you guys get to know the human here as well, he's not just a brilliant franchise leader, but he married his high school sweetheart. He's got three kids. He's an avid tennis player, and this one is hilarious. But he once was described by a dear friend as the most unathletic looking athletic person he knew. And I think it's hilarious, Paul. So tell us more about you. Tell us about Two Maids and what you've been building over there.
Yeah, and I'd be doing myself a disservice and our brand, our company a disservice if I didn't mention I have a second full-time job at HFC where I run Aussie Pet Mobile as well,
Yeah.
a mobile pet grooming business. I'm sure we'll get a little bit into that. But yeah, I mean, just by trade, I'm an accountant and finance guy, so I'm kind of a numbers and data nerd, and so I'm a big believer in that if we can't measure something we can't manage it. And so
Mhm.
really when we talk about technology, we talk about, you were just talking about AUV, customer retention, all of these things are just pieces that we try to put together in the puzzle as we're supporting franchises to be able to help them grow. And so, we have a belief that every, territory that we sell can do over $1 million in revenue. We're not there yet if you look at our AUV, but that's the goal that we're striving for. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, as we go through this process in coaching and supporting our franchise owners, that's kind of always top of mind for us as we go through it. So,
Yeah, it's one thing I love about working with you guys is just that focus on franchise level support and growth and success. It's awesome. So let's talk about that. So AUV, guys, the topic we want to talk about today is so AUV, kind of what is it? How do you improve it? Like, and how do you use it as a measurement so you can actually make it useful? Because AUV is a very broad number, including all categories of all franchise operators in your ecosystem. Gets watered down enough that it's like eating old oatmeal, right? It's not that useful. So we want to break this topic down a little bit more and also talk about how do we improve it? Because I've seen as Paul's come in to help lead this organization, I've seen notable steps in the right direction on AUV. Even as market downturn hurts people, it's still been the focus and still seen improvement across. So, Paul, I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's just start with, I mean, it's a bit of a softball, but how do you guys look at AUV at Two Maids? How do you guys measure it? What do you guys use it for as you're starting to plan out and try to help these franchise operators succeed?
yeah, it is a very broad topic, right? It seems very simple, right? When you just say AUV, hey, it's one number that we're going to go and calculate. But as we look at in our universe, it is a very broad topic, right? So you just mentioned we're a very young franchise brand coming up on our actual kind of our first renewal in the system of our first franchise agreement,
Hmm.
which is a really big milestone for us to be able to celebrate. But if you look back over the years, we sold territories that were gigantic, right? We sold, the entire Nashville market to a single owner. And if I were to go back and redraw that map today, we may have 7 to 10, viable territories inside of that one market, right? And so, it becomes, you have to kind of get a baseline of what you're looking at, and so we start to track it, based on territory size. That's number of households that have been sold. We do it based on maturity, right? So it's not just a number that we look at. Hey, I'm going to say we're doing this much total network revenue and divide it by the 145 territories that we have open and operating.
Hmm.
We typically try to segment it a little more than that. And even, yeah, as I look over the last couple of years, we've identified some of those larger territories, right? And we've gone through and put some strategies in to be able to start to maximize the potential of each one of them. And so we've bought back excess territory from franchisees. We've used
Hmm.
that as a strategy to say, hey, we've kind of plotted all of your customers on your map. We have the ability to do that with some technology that we have. We see that they're very concentrated in this quadrant of your territory. We would love to talk to you about buying back all of this excess kind of peripheral territory that you're not even using and
Hmm.
you have no plan to expand into. And so we can go put somebody in there to go cultivate, those customers. And it's a win for us as a franchisor, and we put a little money in our franchisees' pocket, and they're able to reinvest in their territory that they're operating in. And but sometimes they push back and say, "No, I have plans to expand into that territory." It's like, all right, perfect. Let's start talking about what that looks like, right? And
Yeah.
like, yeah, and so we've built programs to help them to try to incentivize them for that expansion. So, we've given if they're opening another, we're calling it an adjacent territory, or we've split up or subdivided territories. So, we can reduce that kind of second or third territory. We can reduce some technology fees. We can, we have a requirement for a physical office location that we can waive if it meets a certain drive time requirement. And so we really want them to cultivate. We kind of view our territory map as soil, right? And we
Hmm.
want to be cultivating as much of that soil as possible. And when we sell a really big plot of land to somebody and they're not cultivating 75% of it, we've got to figure out a way to be able to drive that. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really been a big point of focus for us over the last couple of years to kind of right size those territories. And so, but we're doing that again based on data, right? So we
Mhm.
took, right? I have the household count in every territory that we've sold. And so what we saw, most people in their mind would correlate more houses equals more revenue, right?
Hmm.
Because it's more
Yeah.
opportunity for revenue. And what we found was that that is not the case.
Hmm.
We found that we
Hmm.
had some really, some of our smaller territories, right? And some, southeastern towns, right? Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, Athens, Georgia were outperforming markets outside of Chicago, outside of Phoenix, outside of some other areas, Nashville,
Yeah.
and some of those other big broad metro markets had 5 or 10 times the number of households.
Hmm.
But it really, I think, becomes, you get to that point, it becomes a distraction a little bit, right? So if I'm the south
Yeah.
side of Nashville and I got to get to the north side of Nashville, and our business, our average ticket price is 160, $170, right? I mean, we got
Hmm.
to do a lot of cleans to generate. Now it's recurring, right? So we show up every 2 weeks, which is what we love.
Yeah.
And so in that, if I'm having to drive an hour every 2 weeks to come clean your house, that's not a profitable job for our franchisee, but they
Mm-mm.
feel like they have to go do it because they own it. And so we want to really get them focused, kind of in their band. And once they're focused and have penetration there, then we start to talk about expansion and looking at, second or third territories.
I love it. You know what I find interesting about this is most people in a conversation about AUV are not going to talk about mapping as much. They're going to talk about some of the things I'd love to dive into deeper with you as well, because as I mentioned, I've watched you guys do a great job of managing AUV up, right, in the network, and um, and the only thing that waters that down a little bit is sometimes is also your the number of new units you're selling, right? So and that's another challenge that I know you guys are dealing with because you got a good brand, so people are interested in working in your franchise system and buying units. And so sometimes even AUV can be a bit misleading if you've got a brand that's growing and so you have a high number of net new units getting on board. Obviously, their revenue is a lot lower in year one. So back to your point of AUV in general, nice measure to try to create a standard measure of across the industry, but it's actually not the best measure until you start segmenting it out by population, by age, that sort of thing. So I appreciate that you shared all that.
Yeah.
Paul, tell me a little bit about so we know what AUV is. You guys have talked about some of the challenges like overselling territories and things like that. But you guys, I think you've had a very good methodology, if I can call it that, to help franchise owners start to mature and grow and improve. Do you mind sharing a little bit about like what have you guys done in that area? How could another franchise brand learn from what you've done and even learn from the mistakes you've made as you've gone through this process of trying to figure out how to help your owners be more successful?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we really get focused on. One is early on in a new franchisee's life, right? We just talked about we have a goal that we believe every territory can be at $1 million or more
Mhm.
in revenue. Well, when you're 2 weeks in to your new business ownership, that number seems so far away that you're not even thinking about it, right? And so we've worked really diligently to kind of break it down kind of into bite-sized pieces, right? So we try to give them smaller targets, right? And so, at Two Maids, right, $160. I'm going to use round numbers here, $150 a clean. Our most popular package is every 2 weeks, a biweekly package, right? So if I can get a customer to sign up for a biweekly package at an average of $150 a time, that customer's worth $3,900 to us on an annual basis, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So now if I start doing that math, I don't have my calculator out, but I think it's somewhere in the 265, 270 recurring customers that I need to become that $1 million store, right? Now let's break it down even a little further into bite-sized pieces. You're a new franchisee. Our goal is to get you, to $1 million. At the latest, we want it 5 years, but that's kind of our target, right? So if we're going to break it out that way, I need you to add 1.5 net recurring customers a week. That's what I need you to think about, right? So your first week open, can you get 2 or 3 new recurring customers put on your books? And then do that again in your second week and your third week. And guess what? We're going to make a mistake and, we're not going to clean, Dave's house to the standard and he's going to leave us. And so if Dave leaves, well, now I got to have 3 to put on the books to make up for the one that Dave left. And so, we try to just give them these kind of short-term operational goals that, are more achievable in their mind, right? And so you're not thinking 5 years from now. And if you stack that up, right, over time, right,
Yeah.
you do that 1.5 a week at the end of your first year, right? I mean, you're at like 75 recurring customers. And some people, when I'm reading or seeing pro formas and projections people are putting together, and they're like 75, like I think I can be at 150. I'm like, that's great. Let's be at 150, right? Let's do that. Yeah,
Sure.
this is what this means. And again, like we go back, and I'll just give another anecdote, right, for some of the audience, right? So for us, yeah, our kind of target territory size now is 75,000 to 100,000 households. So let's start thinking about that math, right? We'll use 100,000 so we can do math easier. I just said we only need 270 recurring customers out of 100,000 households inside of your territory to build a really nice business. So we're not telling our franchisees, like, you got to go take over 30% of your market
Yeah.
to be successful. I need you to go get less than 1% of your market to be successful, right? And so, and so I would just encourage, I think you have a lot of emerging franchisors as listeners, right? So to start thinking about kind of what that looks like as you're designing territories and mapping them out, like, you think you got to go bigger, but I would encourage you to look at it from the different lens and say, as we think about market penetration that you're going to need, yeah, what can you design and build to make it successful? The other thing we've done real quick, and over the last 2 years is we've redesigned our franchise support organization, our operations team, regional operations managers, if you will. We used to be set up geographically, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to get the East Coast, Paul, you're going to get, the Midwest, Tommy, you're going to take the West Coast and you're going to have 30 or 40 locations, and some of them are going to be brand new, and some of
Hmm.
them are going to be 8 years into their business, and we want you to support all of them. Well, the way you support those owners is drastically different. And so what we've done is we are now supporting based on where they are in their business life cycle,
Hmm.
right? And
Yes.
so
Right.
our operations team is much more centered around kind of where you are in your business cycle. And so we can support you differently in year 5 than we did in year 1. In year 1, you're still learning what chemical goes on what surface and what rag we're going to use to clean
Hmm.
stainless steel, and
Right.
how do I log in to client tether to make sure that I've followed up on all the leads that have come in. But 6 months in, a year into your business, all of that stuff is second nature, right? You've done it every day
Hmm.
repetitively, and so you don't need us to continue to harp on it, to continue to talk to you about those things. And so now we need to talk about, hey, now, in Two Maids, the way to grow is to hire another team. At Aussie Pet, it's time to buy another van, right? We got to build capacity, right? And now we're not
Hmm.
learning anymore. Now we're building. And with that comes a different set of challenges. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Spot on. I love it. In fact, you talk about the year one training, and this, I think, a challenge a lot of brands fall into, guys. So don't feel like ashamed of this as you. I mean, you're talking to a smart human here, listening to a smart human that they did it that way for a long time. Well, like 7 years, 8 years
Yes.
almost.
Yeah.
So, and it got them to a certain point. But what you start to find too is, and I think part of this is the necessity of maturation, right? Because you were only franchising 10 years. So, 5 years ago, your oldest franchise owner was 5 years old, right? So it's not,
Right.
now it's a different, situation where you've got your first renewal coming up and 140 operators, some of which have been there 7, 8, 9 years now too, and they're doing really well. Well, you can't go to like Lee and try to talk to him about cleaning with rags, right? Like that's not where his head is anymore. That owner is like,
Right.
I want to buy another territory. I want to build out this empire. I want to get to a, $5 million business or whatever his plan is. And the skills required internally with your team to be able to coach somebody who's trying to build the empire versus somebody who's just trying to like get P&L to look a little better so they can afford to maybe get another crew lined up, or I don't know, like it's totally different. So how do you guys break them out? Because it would be really convenient if it was always by year markers. Have you guys figured out another way to look at them? Because
Yeah.
your guys
So
sometimes go ahead.
we really early on, it's really about consistency, right? And so from the moment you sign a franchise agreement with Two Maids, we're going to hand you, every one of those people is going to get handed to, a superstar on our team, Anna, right? And she's going to take you from the signing of that franchise agreement. She's going to be in control of your training. She's going to help you get through all of your pre-open kind of items, right? I mean, something as simple as, hey, I got to set up a corporate organization, whether it's an LLC or an S corp or a C corp. I've got to have an operating bank account. I've got to go find office space and sign a lease, and so
Hmm.
we're going to help you manage through that process the entire time. And then I know, as the leader of the organization, that you're going to get the same experience from Anna. It's going to be repeatable, right? Well, that's what franchising is all about, right? Building repeatable, scalable businesses, right? And so I
Yeah.
know that experience you get with Anna is the same, whether you
Hmm.
sign 2 years ago, whether you sign today. She's going to take you on the same journey. Obviously, we tweak and improve as we go and iterate, but
Yeah.
I know you're going to be handled appropriately. And then, and Anna's, been a part of the Two Maid system for the better part of a decade now, right? She started as a professional house cleaner and then became a manager and then came over to work in operations. And so she knows how to run the day-to-day business of a Two Maids location kind of backwards and forwards. And then, after you get open, she hands you off to the next member of our team, Kathy, also very similar story. Started as a manager, now on our team, and she's going to teach you the tactical day to day. And her goal is to get you to break even as quickly as possible, right? And so early on, we're going to be a little scrappy, right? We're going to be, hey, this person called on a Wednesday and wants us to be there Thursday morning. Like when you have 20 teams on the schedule and your schedule's full, that may not be possible. But
Hmm.
2 weeks in, yeah, we're going to wake up and roll up our sleeves and we're going to go, right? Like we got to
Yeah.
go build that relationship and get that on the schedule. And she's going to help you kind of with through that, right? Through that scrappiness and that just, kind of clawing until you can get to that level to where, and you're breaking even. And that's a big moment in any business, right?
Hmm.
Hey, I've made it to this point. Now I know
Yeah.
this is going to work and I can keep going. And then past that, past those kind of two thresholds, it then becomes a little more time based, right?
Yeah.
We hit, and but if you're accelerated and you're hitting a revenue number ahead of schedule, there are times where we'll go ahead and put you into the next age group, so to speak, because you're kind of,
Hmm.
yeah, we don't want to hold you back as we go through it.
Yeah. Love that. Well, and what I'm hearing is just personalizing the coaching for the to help people go from where they are to where they should be, which means you guys have already mapped out the real franchise owner journey from inception and pre-signing to grand opening to break even to maybe buying their next territory. Like it sounds like you guys did all that mental work first to then figure out how do we align a team around this process to then coach to it, right?
Correct. Yep. I mean, we're still, and I tell people this all the time, really inside of both brands, right? We are big enough to know that our model works, but we are not so big that we think we have it all figured out. And so we are constantly tweaking and iterating and still trying to keep this kind of small, mentality, small brand. Like we're going to try new things and we want to fail fast if we're going to fail so we can move on to the next one. But we know we're not done even inside of our own journey on things that we can bring to the table, whether that is, we're in the midst of a big project to really, client tether has helped us in this, and we're trying to take it from soup to nuts, but to digitize our complete customer journey, right?
Hmm.
So you mentioned, we lean into technology as a brand very heavily. I think we're still one of the few, if not the only, kind of nationally recognized cleaning service that will let you schedule an appointment from our website.
Hmm.
We don't take you through a sales funnel and then say, hey, call to confirm your price, or hey, we wanted to talk to you. Like, we
Yeah.
have tools in place to be able to do that. And you can get onto our schedule if we're in your area in a matter of minutes, right?
Hmm.
And so we still want that to happen. What we had realized, and the lead nurturing platform of Client Tellers helped us do more of that, right? Without human interaction, right? We've been able to put in action plans and things and thoughtfully think about it to
Yeah.
where our franchisees don't have to worry about it. Their managers don't have to worry about it. It's just being done in an automated fashion in the background. But what we realized a little over a year ago, probably 18 months or so ago, is that we were really easy for you to become our customer. But then we had this blind spot that we were really hard to do business with as a customer. So if you wanted to reschedule an appointment, you had to pick up the phone and call us, or you had to email us, or you had to text us. And so now, we want to be able to give the consumer a lot more kind of self-service ability, right? And so we're in the midst of piloting. We're actually getting ready to onboard another 30 or so locations in the next 30 days, but
Mhm.
onto a Two Maids online platform that, allows the consumer to see their history, right? Like, hey, here are your former, their previous three cleanings. Here are the services we provided. Now you can see your schedule for the next three cleanings, right? And so you pull it up and see, like, hey, oh, Two Maids is scheduled to be here next Tuesday, but I'm going to the beach, and so I'm not going to be able to let them in. So I should just tell them from the phone, hey, I need to reschedule that appointment.
Mhm.
And it is provided, it's really been remarkable to see kind of the consumer behavior and even some of our franchisees
Mhm.
realization. We see engagement, like 66% of the engagement that we see on that platform is happening outside of business hours. So nights or weekends to where we're not, sitting in somebody's not sitting by the phone waiting on that request to come in.
I love
But
that.
we've seen, reschedule requests, happen 10 days before the appointment, which just gives the owner and the manager more time to be able to fill that on the schedule, right? So, the in a service-based industry, whether that's home services or healthcare or somewhere where you have this kind of tightly knit, packed schedule that becomes your Bible on a daily, weekly basis, right?
Yeah.
If you call me tomorrow, if you call me today and reschedule an appointment for tomorrow, I'm probably not backfilling it. So not only
Mm-mm.
am I not getting your revenue for that appointment, I now have an opportunity cost because now I have an opening on my schedule. And oh, now I have an employee that was going to go generate income that now doesn't have that opportunity. And I may be scrambling on the other side, paying somebody trying to fill it. And so it's not just the cost of that lost opportunity. Like the
Yeah.
cost ends up being two or three times that appointment value. And so giving ample time to be able to fill that gap
Hmm.
was really meaningful as well.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing though is you guys, prying and this is the job of every franchisor, right? Like, is to keep prying back systems and processes and consumer behavior to figure out how can we help our local operator be more successful? How can I help them avoid this opportunity cost and this revenue loss? And how can I help the customers have a better experience so they feel like they want to do business with us? I love the way you said that. Like we're easy to get scheduled, but we're hard to do business with. Probably true of a lot of people. And you guys investing the time and effort into that to figure out a technology solution that creates scale and ease of customer engagement. These are the types of things that as we talk about AUV, like it might be hard to say, well, how did that impact AUV? I don't know. It feels pretty obvious that you're having better efficiency in your routes every day and more jobs booked because people have the ability to manage that schedule in advance now.
Absolutely. And it makes it more difficult to leave us, right? The easier we are to do business with, the longer customers want to stay, right? And so now I'm not having to acquire customers every 90 days. Maybe I'm acquiring customers every 180 days. And so,
Yeah.
we and look, we're able to now start, gently upselling, right? Like, hey, we haven't deep cleaned your home in a year. Here's a $30 coupon. Do you want to upgrade to a deep clean
Hmm.
on your next appointment? And they can do it all from here, right? It's just like we all live our lives on this 4.5 inch screen that fits in our pocket, and now they're doing
Yeah.
it, and again at a time we're busy. Dave, I've heard your travel schedule lately. Like, how much time have you had to call, your home service provider and say, "Hey, I need a pool clean," or I need like you don't have that opportunity 8 to 5 because
Yeah.
we're so busy, and so
Hmm.
it's all of the like, and not one of those things by itself is going to make this work exponentially, but when we
Hmm.
start stacking them on top of each other, it really turns into quite a robust experience for our consumer,
Hmm.
and then becomes on the backside a much more efficient way to do business as a Two Maids franchisee. So,
Yeah. And that's what it takes for the people to sign on and be successful early to get that break even faster and to spend less time chasing and retaining. Those are key things.
yeah,
Tell
and
me,
we're,
so
and we're doing
okay.
the same thing on the Aussie Pet side with an Aussie Pet Mobile online experience powered by the same sort of technology. And now, right, as a franchisor, we can start to look to say, like, on the Two Maids sales funnel, one of the questions we ask is how many pets you have in your home. Well, how valuable is that information for another HFC brand
Right.
to be able to say now you can control both services from the same login, same place on your phone, and now and so you start to build kind of this ecosystem
Yeah.
across brands, and it's really exciting to think about. 5 years from now of what it can look like, but we're
Yeah.
just early on in the process, and so trying to take those bite-sized chunks and go.
Yeah. No, but these are the types of things that you have to be worried about leads overnight and brand over time, right?
Yep.
But a lot of people get really stuck being myopic saying, okay, we got to get more leads, more leads, more leads. Well, that's going to help increase AUV as well if they're good quality leads and you've got processes in place to convert them and schedule them, right? But if it's just a sieve, right? Like you just have leads falling out of your bucket, you don't have retention, these are the types of things that help retain so that you don't have to replace every other lead that you bring in the first 90 days, right? This is really smart. And That's the type of stuff in a recurring service business like this that can help it spin up, not spin down.
Yes. And I mean, and that's another thing, with Two Maids is, we realized that early on, right? So we are the digital marketing agency for our franchisees,
Hmm.
right? It's all we think about. We've got a marketing team, a dedicated marketing team, that is there to support them. We've been doing it for years and years. We have all this customer data. Like we have primary, secondary, tertiary customer profiles built out that we're targeting in ads. And this year alone, last year, I can't remember what we posted. We post lead volumes in our item 19,
Hmm.
right? Because it's such a big thing. And so, I mean, we're seeing growth this year in that. And then to your point, right? Like, how do we engage, we get a lot of those customers to engage or the potential customers to engage with us, but what happens when somebody just falls off, right? And that's where the lead nurturing from client tether comes in for us. Like we've
Yeah.
seen, I know I'm giving a few, just kind of spot ads here, but I mean, I've seen a customer that initially hit our website in January book a recurring service in September.
Love that.
And so, like
Love that. Yeah.
and it was just because, hey, we just had this platform set up and program. I mean,
Yeah. Nurture
as
them.
it, we were starting to do some kind of, beyond, some other things. I mean, we just looked at unresponsive leads for the Two Maids brand from January through the end of August.
Hmm.
We had 143,000
Yeah. That's a
leads.
database,
Like,
right? That's a
yes,
database. Yeah.
correct. And so what can we do with that? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible to think about just how much information is, and that's after we scrubbed duplicates and obviously fake email addresses and obviously fake phone numbers. And I mean, that's a treasure trove of potential customers that
Mhm.
we're going back to remine, re-nurture, to get back in front of. So
Love it. I just did a training on that right before we jumped on this podcast recording with a roofing brand. Of like that's especially in years like this, right, where lead volumes are down. And I don't know for you guys, but for a lot of the brands I work with, they're down 25-30% year over year. It's been a hard year for people. And it's been because of that, it's also a year where people are like, well, maybe I should consider cutting back on expenses. And so that makes it a hard year for non-mission critical. It's like my window's broken, my plumbing's out. But like, can I spare not have my home cleaned, right? So it puts you guys in a tenuous spot, and yet you're still growing and you're thinking about ways to do it. This is the recipe, right? To increase AUV is you're thinking about resources and assets and technology and tools you've got available to drive it. But I've seen people, I mean, like you mentioned, January to September. I've seen people even on frandev, which is a much, much harder sell, right, than cleaning a home, have 2x industry average conversion rates on dead lead revival than on new lead conversion. I mean, it's incredible what can happen if you do it right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just scratching the surface there. So we're excited. I mean, yeah. So like I said, there's no one silver bullet to
Mm-mm.
driving AUV or to driving revenue growth or same store sales revenue growth. But it is constantly thinking about it, constantly looking at different strategies, easier ways, automation.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah. Data analytics. Let's both push our glasses up as we've been nerdy
that's right.
today
Yeah,
together.
that's
But
right.
but the thing that I hear is you're using data to drive the business, right? That's got to be key. So if you don't have that, then create a system or an environment wherein you can get that data. We can get the database. You can filter down the database. You can take action on a database. But also look at your, excuse me, your unit level coaching strategy. What's the life cycle of a franchise brand? Who's the right person? Like Anna, she's the right person to get somebody launched and ready. And then there's a handoff, right? This is you're managing them like a lead, almost like through a funnel. And if you don't have that system set up, it's going to be really hard for you as you start to grow your franchise brand, or you are a grown brand and you're just struggling to get people to really take it to the next level of where they should be in this journey as a franchise owner. It's probably because the person that's trying to coach them doesn't have the skill set to take them to the next level. And that doesn't mean that's the wrong person. That just means it's the wrong person for that conversation. So I think you guys have been very deliberate about structuring it that way. and getting the right person with the right skills in the right spot in that process so they can actually help people level up into the next performance category.
Absolutely. I mean, and the questions start to change, right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
you brought up Lee earlier, right? Lee called me one day and he's like, "Hey, should I buy a building? Right? Should I purchase the real estate instead of leasing?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, yeah, let's
Yeah,
talk
run
through
some
how you go
numbers.
through that decision-making process, right? I can't make that decision for you, but that's
Mhm.
a much different question than, oh my gosh, like I just had one of my three house cleaners quit. What do I do?"
Right,
And so
right.
like it's a and to expect one person to have the breadth of knowledge or expertise to cover both of those questions
Yeah.
is you're searching for a unicorn almost, right?
It
And
doesn't
so
exist. They're not going
right,
to want to have one. Even if they could, they're not going to want to have the discussion about which rag do you put on which surface if they have the experience and can coach on buying a building, right?
correct. Yeah. And so I mean, yeah, and so we're really
Yeah.
just trying to make sure that we are meeting those needs appropriately.
Yeah. Well, Paul, you've been fantastic. I mean, this is, I think, great content that's very timely as people are trying to think about how do I work on my strategy for 2025 and beyond so that I can build my AUV. I can help my franchisees find more success. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, they said, "Hey, Paul, you got a great idea there. How can I chat with you?" What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a pretty easy way. You'll see me in a bright pink blazer in my profile picture, just with the Two Maids colors there. Also, I mean, my email address is paul.ebert at go hfc.com. So
Mhm.
go homefranchiseconcepts.com. And I'm happy for anybody to reach out in either one of those forums and connect and look forward to more conversation.
Yeah. Well, Paul, you're a good man. Thanks again for the time today and sharing those insights with us. And we'll have to pick your brain again and do another round of knowledge dump. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye,
Thanks,
Paul.
Dave.